Welcome to episode 6 of Bread for Dough. I actually miscalculated on the number of episodes I was going to do. I've got an extra week in here. So I've got a special bread I want to make at the very end, and that's going to be next week. You have to tune in for that one. It's going to be good. So this time I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, because I kind of went through my usual recipes that I do, and I thought, you know, why don't I reinforce kind of the concept of having fun with the bread, mixing it up, experimenting. And then the other thing was that what do I have left that I haven't used as an ingredient, and that is cornmeal. Because the bread that I make occasionally is like a light cornbread, which is about half and half cornmeal, white flour. So I came up with something that's different. I went online a little bit just to kind of look at recipes, just looking for ideas, and came across gingerbread. And I love gingerbread. It's wonderful stuff. Traditional gingerbread is very fatty, very dense, very moist. You can make it that way, of course, but I want to kind of have the challenge of staying with a yeast bread. So what I'm going to be doing today is making you a gingerbread cornmeal cranberry, ginger cranberry cornmeal. How about that? Ginger cranberry cornbread. Okay. The cornbread we're going to do, again, 2.5 cups of flour volume. I'm going to go 1.5 cups of white and then a full cup of cornmeal. Now, if you're not familiar with cornmeal, it's real gritty. So the challenge here is really to hold the bread together. So I want to make sure I use the gluten. Okay, for the salt, I'm going to go for half a teaspoon this time. Let's see, of the ginger, of course. We're going to need a lot of this. So off comes the top. And I want a full 2 teaspoons of ginger. And then the gluten goes into that. Now for sugar, I usually put the sugar in at this point. For sugar, we've got a whole different thing. We're going to use molasses this time to give it for the gingerbread. So I'm not going to mix that in. I don't want to paste this up right now. So we'll come back to that. Okay, for wet ingredients, 2 eggs. Okay, the molasses, I want half a cup of this. So I'm going to add it to water volume. I need a lot less water. I'm going to do a little bit under 1/2 cup. Let's call it 1/3 cup. Okay. And then a full 1/2 cup of molasses. Pour that in. Throw the egg into that. As a richness element, I'm going to throw some vanilla in there. Let's give it a teaspoon of vanilla. Okay, now let's get back to the dry. Because what we need to do now is mix in the butter. We have a semi-solid, obviously, so we're going to fold this in. I want 3 tablespoons of butter. The last ingredient is the cranberries. I've gotten dried cranberries. Again, adapting from last week's experience with the raisins falling to the bottom. I've taken the cranberries and I just have chopped them, chop, quite a bit, until they're just little tiny things. So that's going to go in and get mixed in. And that is it, except for our yeast, of course, at the very end. So let's get this thing together. Wet ingredients, looking very different than they usually do. Alright, let's turn this thing on and see what it looks like. Something very interesting has happened here. This dough did not rise, so I interrupted it. I don't know what this is. I'm going to have to do some research on why this didn't rise. I've heard, for example, that if you use honey in your recipe, that it impedes the growth of the yeast, and I'm wondering if that's what molasses does also. So what I did is I interrupted this. When it got to the point where it looked like it started to bake, I took a look at it and it had not risen. So I did something I've never done before. I actually took it out of the machine. I added baking powder to it, which, you know, is a bit of a trick. I'm not sure if I've got it mixed in well enough. Perhaps you can't do it after the fact. And kneaded it and then put it in a bread container. So this is going to be a total, oops, comes right out. Total experiment to find out if this thing is edible or not. Feeling a little sticky, so I'm thinking it may not have baked all the way through. Yeah. Okay. So it did not. It did not bake through, basically. Now that's still going to be edible. It's just crappy. This is the first round of dough that's been left overnight to rise. Flour it up a bit on one side, let it rise a little bit more, and then oven bake it. Now I want to work with this as little as possible because I don't want to suppress what little rise we have in it, even though it's going to take another round. Okay. So basically I'm just going to fold it like that. And then flip it over. And that is going to sit in my oven under warm for about 2 hours. I must see if I can get some rise out of that. And then we'll bake it just like that. Okay, so here's the bread having just been raised for 2 hours. You can see we're kind of like a ciabatta bread almost. So let's go ahead and bake this. It'll give us something to eat. Alrighty, let's see what we got. Well, it's not too bad. Okay, so there we go. I'm not quite sure this is the right type of dough for this bread, but you're going to see this again next week when we do have the right type. That's very soft. You can see that steam coming out. But that's not a bad rescue. That's going to be interesting. I think I may use this one as a coffee dipping bread. We'll see how it tastes like. Actually, it might be a good bread for turkey sandwiches because of the cranberries. I'll give it a shot. So there you go. It is cranberry ginger cornbread.